everyone. Welcome to the third session of the Go Live web series, and thank you to joining us. Today we will discuss about AI once again, but now especially in the context of the supply chain, and we were talking about stock management and demand forecast. As always, don't hesitate to ask questions on the Q&A and of the web export. If you have some trouble about the Q&A part, don't hesitate to ask questions on the chat of the WebEx. Without further ado, I leave the floor to Victor Azria and Martin Shorter to present the topic of the day. Floor is yours, guys.
Thank you, Nicolas. So maybe first let us introduce ourselves. So I'm Victor, in charge of data science and analytics for Capgemini Insight and Data France.
Hello, and yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So Martin Shorter, consultant, supply chain and data science at SAS for 15 years.
Thank you. So we have 30 minutes to talk about AI in supply chain. So let me just first introduce the subject a little bit. So it's kind of obvious, and for those who have followed the other webinars, it's the main subject. So AI is obviously a game changer. So we know that AI changes everything in customer knowledge, in marketing in particular, because I mean that is actually the first domain where AI was huge in with our clients. Then we know that AI is huge also in manufacturing with computer vision, in fraud detection, security, etc. And we don't always see AI with supply chain because, of course, when we talk about supply chain, we always imagine the center of costs, and we don't really see why AI should increase, for example, a company's revenue, where most of the time it's mainly just reduced. So let me just first give you a short example of why we have to use AI in our global supply chain, and what can be the benefit. So I was working actually that was my very first client a few years ago. I was working for a luxury brand, and they had the main problem is that they were selling very few bags to clients, to customers, and their historical producers, they actually knew exactly how much they were going to sell, but the new ones, they had absolutely no idea. And when you don't know how much bags you're going to sell, you don't know where you have to send them, you don't know what store have to sell them first, because of course when you have no inventory, when you have no stock, you have to make sure that every client that come to your store is able to get out of the store with the bag. So you have to make sure that the stock is evenly is proportionally available in some stores, but not all of them. We used AI to imagine how much bags we're going to sell and what are the stores according to geography, according to the competition, according to what time of the year, what store were the most able to sell the bag first. And we actually got such a good precision that today this company is using AI most of the time in their supply chain. And it's not only just to reduce the costs, but it's also how can we make sure that the customer is always satisfied, because when it comes to our store, there is always the product that is coming for. Of course, we can also imagine so many use cases. When you imagine the supply chain, not with a not very vertical, but horizontal, where you take into account the prediction of sales per customer and the warehouse inventory, and you take also into account the transportation between warehouse and stores and everything. Of course, it has to be all the data and all the information that you have collected has to be put in. It has to be centralized and has to be analyzed in one thing, in one whole organization. And that's the main point here of AI in supply chain, is instead of optimizing everything vertically, let's try and see how we can optimize everything as a whole. And so on the right here, there are some numbers that we collected from many various clients at Capgemini. And so obviously we see it as cost reduction, but there is also growth that you can have because more projects are available for clients. With less stock, you of course improve your margin, and and you have less, much less cost in network inventory with all your suppliers and everything. There is also an example that I like to give most of the time is when you think about AI in data science, most of the time data scientists, they like to predict things. And so we used to do BI many years ago. We still do it today. But now today we want to predict the number of let's say, bottles of wine that we're going to sell next month. But this information is actually not very useful by itself. I mean, knowing the number of products that you're going to sell next month or in the next 6 months is only valuable for a company if you use it to impact all your supply chain, which means how can I make sure that I have the right amount of stock, but not just to make sure that everyone has a product in the end of the month, but also to make sure that you don't waste. Because today everyone is talking about having a positive environmental impact. And so AI in supply chain also help this. How can you reduce all your waste? How can you make sure that you have less transportation between warehouses and stores? And then, of course, reduce your carbon footprint. So it's not just only prediction, but it's also what we call prescription. So now that I know how much I'm going to sell tomorrow, then what are the actions that I can take today to improve my margin, to reduce my costs, etc. And then we'll see examples with Martin just after of how we can actually technically do it with some tools and in the end a client example. So I just also wanted to share with you the vision of supply chain that we had that we used to have. This is the historical vision with your ERP on one side, with all your supply chain management tools that are not really made for extracting data and using data. And this is why today most of supply chain organizations use office tools and mainly spreadsheets. And we still see a lot of clients doing all their supply management with Excel. What we see as a game changer is not only cloud solution, of course, in AI, but it's all the solution that is in between the ERP and the spreadsheets. And this is what we call analytical platform. Is where we put the data, where we use all the algorithms. We actually also ingest external data, because in supply chain there are so many external factors that can be interesting to integrate in this solution. For example, the weather is very interesting when you do forecasting, because you're not going to sell the same thing when it's raining and when it's very sunny outside. Information on vacations, holidays, day offs, for example, weekends, any kind of data that can actually show some behavior change with your customers. And so within this analytical platform, we can add some demand and supply chain planning with much better forecasts and much better precision in your inventory management. And so now I'm going to let Martin tell us about the SAS and in particular the SAS via analytical platform, how it can, in this particular case of supply chain, help our customers.
Thank you, Victor. So yes, SAS via is the analytical platform that SAS is proposing, and there are 4 words that can qualify it rapidly. It is unified because it can be considered as a single contact point for any analytical algorithm, whether it is in machine learning, econometrics, operational research, natural language processing, or any kind of algorithm you may want to use. Then it's open because it is meant to be used by any data scientist, whether they are Python data scientist or R data scientist or Java, C++, SAS, but also to be used by business users and managers because it has simple UI where you can use clicks to make some research on data. And powerful also because the engine beneath use parallel and in-memory processing that allow for high scalability. So in supply chain, we need this scalability if we want to tackle the customer demand in a very low granularity or at several levels of granularity in parallel. And also it is adaptive because you can have it whether in premise or in the cloud, whether it is a private cloud or public or hybrid. Okay, next. So this analytic platform, as Victor mentioned, is all about accelerating the analytics lifecycle. And so in supply chain, we have many business questions we need to answer. Like as Victor said, where do I put my inventory, and so on. And so we need to use the data to take the data where it is, where it belongs, and to enrich it, etc. So there is a whole life cycle of the data to take good decision. And so the analytical platform supports all these processes. So first, the data. If we want to enrich a decision with any data, you need to have a lot of connectors. So data are logged in ERPs, or in social media, or somewhere in the web, maybe in IoTs. So you need to have many connectors so that you can grasp the data where it is. And then you need to store it in different kind of support. And you need also to treat it, to put it into quality. And that is the main time usually spent in analytics. And then you need to, what we call discovery, is the recipe you are going to build around the data to answer this business question. And so you need a lot of algorithm, you need a breadth arsenal of algorithm. And then you need to be also flexible on programming language. It's not anymore on which language you choose. It's about having the data, having a good engine that can be programmed with the favorite language of your data scientist. And then also it is, as analytics and data is more and more important and available, personnel that has not background, any analytical background, also can give their insight. And so the platform needs to be accessible for those kind of person, business user in particular. And then deployment is the time for return on investment. So it's no use building models and pipelines if they are not getting deployed in your network. So all the spends you've done in human, in talent, in technology, you need to have a return on investment. So the fact that your data analysis is easily deployable in your system will make a return on investment tangible. Next. And then on modern platform, you have this layer of orchestration, and this layer allows you to track the data, to manage the data, so that you can see how it gets transformed along the pipelines. You can also monitor along the time the performance of your models, of your accuracy, and at every treatment, the platform proposes you some automation. So automation for data preparation with AI, automation for forecasting, automation at any level of usage. And here, what is interesting to see is that SAS is among the leaders in the platform, analytical platform. And there is a fierce competition nowadays in this field. So it's very interesting to see the new features and the new concepts that are embedded in this kind of platform. Yes, next. So intelligent artificial means also computer vision, natural language processing, dealing with unstructured data. Sorry. And so we can help very complex supply chain or manufacturing or any industry-specific business problem using all this wide variety of techniques. So we help Lockheed Martin to have their aircraft more on the air than on the ground. We help, for instance, Volvo to reduce the diagnostic of the engine trips. And so on, and obviously data science and machine learning helps health, and SAS is helping healthcare companies during this COVID period. And next, please. So based on this platform, SAS is proposing a vertical solution to address more specifically some specific business problem of supply chain. So at the very beginning, we talk about customer demand. So we have a solution that is customer intelligence, but we don't put it in supply chain because maybe it's not the role of supply chain to take care of marketing, campaign, etc. But it's the same technology in it. So the SAS Via platform brings data unification, brings a lot of engines and algorithms with machine learning, forecasting, etc., and orchestration, so that we can then answer specific questions. So, for instance, intelligent planning. Here, the planning is about how can I plan the quantity I order to my supplier, or how can I plan the activity of a warehouse that is delivering packs to stores, or how can I plan my budget at a national level. So whether you are at finance or supply chain, you may work at different time granularity. But here you can, with a single point of contact, you can have different plans that are fueled with the same kind of data, the same data. So you can synchronize all the company using this technology. Then we bring also on the table operation research. So once you have the uncertainty of your demand at every node of your supply chain network, then you can cover your risk of shortage. And then you can optimize for every SKU, every point of storage, the quantity you want to stock just to cover your risk. You can also optimize what you put in your pack. So this is a size optimization, and this is more for fashion industry, and it is a very easy to implement solution. And it is about size and also color profile depending on clusters of stores. Then we built also a solution on warranty on spare parts. How can I lower the cost of my warranty in a network of resellers, for instance? For automotive industry, it's very interesting. Also, we have for the energy industry, the energy forecasting solution that has different way of tackling the algorithm, because the time granularity is not the same. It's like half an hour, and then you need to gather the weather data at a very thin level. And also we have a solution for procurement, and it is at the frontier of fraud. It's a frontier of several domain expertise that we go up to the procurement to help companies also mitigate their risk with suppliers. So all those solutions are talking about supply chain here, and can be as software as a service, or on the cloud, or on premise. So here you have some screenshots of the backbone technology, let's say. In the first screenshot, upper left, up left, you see a pipeline, analytic pipeline, so you can make drag and drops so that your data science cycle is shortened, let's say. On the middle, you have time series exploration, so you can explore at every level of your hierarchy, product, and geography, how it depends on your sales, or it could be your kilowatt hour consumption. You have also on the right, it's more on text analytics, the link on concepts, on documents. Lower left, you see some visualization and the fact that you can have this visualization on mobile devices. And on the finally on the bottom right, you see analysis that a business user also can perform with low level of analytical knowledge, let's say. So it's a first step for a business user to enter in this world of data science. Then here, it's just a zoom on the forecasting part, because forecasting is the very core of supply chain. So you see on the left that the platform is proposing many algorithms, different algorithms, state-of-the-art algorithms, so that you can either use it directly or get inspired by them, and you can recode as you want, depending on the level of your skills. So you can see, for instance, stacked model, which is mixing neural networks and time series. You can see multi-stage model, temporal aggregation model also, which is interesting because you can have some specificity that you can catch on, let's say, monthly level, and other time specificity that you can catch on daily level. Okay, so next, please. So a business case, a real case, on the top 10 global retailer, wanted to go on this let's say data science journey, and so on their supply chain they have made this discovery, let's say, that the lack of accurate forecasting, and their forecasts were different at every level of the network. So store forecast, warehouse forecast, all the forecasts were not synchronized, let's say. There is a data disconnection, and the data that is talking about store has nothing to see with data that is talking about a warehouse. So that leads to huge human efforts to compensate all this disconnection, and leads to a lot of inventory. So, and then tomorrow, in fact, it's today. Can you go back one, and then I will finish rapidly. And so today we have a unique forecasting asset, not a forecasting asset spread on different levels of their organization. It's a unique forecasting asset that feed any need inside the company. So the need for store orders or warehouse orders or even budget. And this forecasting asset is versatile enough to cope with any channel that exists now, but also will be versatile enough to cope with the future channel that we don't know yet that will open. And obviously, it's a state-of-the-art with the machine learning, etc. So yes, then we get the next. And so the benefits is obviously more accurate forecasts, but and at a thinner level, so they can forecast at aggregated level, but at the very, very most thinner level product their store, for instance, and also more stable forecasts. So this episode of COVID shows that the forecasts can have huge drops and downs and highs. So it's important to have an engine that is making forecasts more stable. At least the accuracy is more stable. And so we went through with Capgemini a journey of data collection, data quality at a very thin level, and adding explanatory variables that impacts the forecast. And what is interesting also is that now there is two kind of profiles working on the forecast of this retailer, and those two competency, data scientists and demand planners, are two team members working on the same program. They are using the same analytical platform. The one is taking care of data, trying to answer some question on forecast accuracy, and the other, the demand planner, is taking care about overriding and promoting the forecast, explaining the forecast, and also gathering data that are not yet in the system. I think that's it.
Thank you, Martin, for this last intervention. Do you have some question, maybe for Victor and Martin? Do you need some precision? Don't hesitate to ask question by the chat or by the Q&A. We give you 2 or 3 minutes to answer the question. No question today? Yeah, one question.
Not really a question.
Okay, if you don't have any question. Yeah, sorry. It's not a question, but yeah, we will share the presentation, and don't worry, to any people that is involved, and it will be available on the YouTube channel of Capgemini. So don't hesitate to ask us if you need a replay or something like that. Okay, if you don't have any question, maybe on the chat. One question: what are the ND tools for the data scientists used by the data scientists? Sorry.
So for the client that we presented in the end, one of the largest retailer worldwide, we used SAS Vaya, which is actually usable by any data scientist. Today you can code with Python or R or any open source language. But then otherwise, for other clients, you have today on the market many different tools that can be used by data scientists. This kind of project, you can either use only open source solutions, and I'm thinking about Anaconda, for example, which can be used by also any data scientist, because you can on Python, you have all the libraries, etc., etc. So you can develop a project with just open source, but then you have, of course, all the problems of deployment and industrialization linked to that. And then otherwise you have like editor solutions, and almost all editors have a solution today. Of course, Microsoft are working a lot with Databricks. AWS, they have SageMaker. SAS has Vaya. There is Analytical also. There are many different solutions today that can be used.
We have other question on the Q&A. What are security measures implemented to ensure data is not tampered with? Victor or Martin, you able to answer the question?
So I didn't see the question. So what are security measures implemented to ensure data?
Yeah, to ensure data is not tampered with.
That is a good question. So unless Martin, you have an answer for this. No?
Yes, I'm not sure technical architect. There is encryption, and then if you take data from social network, don't know if they are temporal. So these questions are many under question. So from a software perspective or SaaS value perspective, there is a lot of algorithm and measures implemented. I won't be it's can be the subject also for.
So yeah, one of the answer would be there are some security measures of cloud providers. First of all, you can put your data if you put your data on the cloud. Otherwise, it's mainly I would say direct security measures. And then one other thing is to make sure that your algorithm is not deriving, that making sure that new data is not changing everything, or people are not modifying the data by themselves. You make sure that your algorithm is stable with time. And this is something else. When you see that the algorithm is not stable, which means the precision is decreasing anomaly, then you can actually notify the data teams. If that answers your question. See another question: how can we know that the solution proposed by AI is a good option or not? I would say it's a good option if you have a return on investment. So if you see that you can improve your sales prediction with AI, or you can optimize better your warehouse inventory with AI, etc., etc., and then you see that the margin that you make with AI is bigger than the cost of your AI solution, then it's a good option. But you obviously have to build a business case in the beginning to make sure that it's a good option or not. And then new jobs, have we got the correct training session or people to answer the demand? Are you talking about the AI demands of corporations? So do we have enough trainings for data scientists or data analysts? I think this is how I understand the question. I would say I don't know if Martin and Nicolas, you understood the question the same way, but this is how I understood it. I would say
I don't see the question. I don't see the question.
You don't see it. It's in a Q&A. New jobs. Have we got the correct training session or people to answer the demand? So the first answer would be most universities and schools in the world are today training people to become data scientists or to use data correctly. So that would be a first answer. There are a lot of trainings and people do have the skills to answer some of the questions. The other thing is when you talk about deployment, it's a bit different than experimentation with AI. And so people who are trained with machine learning don't necessarily have the skills to have an industrial solution. And so this is where we kind of lack training is how can we build sustainable and an industrial, which means scalable AI. And for this, a lot of MOOCs are working on this.
Okay. I think we answered the question. So thank you everyone for this session and for your attention. Thank you to Victor and Martin for your availability. The next webcast will be on next Tuesday and will be the sustainability in AI. Sorry, and for the next one, it will be in link with the machine learning ops, the ML ops. A kind of approach between DevOps and machine learning. So I wish you a very good afternoon. See you on next Tuesday for another episode of our web series.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.